Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and today is going to be a little special of a video today. Of course, you can see by the length of the video, it's probably going to be long as shit. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first part of two videos that I'm making about Assassin's Creed. As you can see, Assassin's Creed Origins is coming out, and in the past year, I've basically been reintroduced to the Assassin's Creed franchise. I fell out of the series after Assassin's Creed 3, and I played through every single one of them up until about 2-3 months ago. Now, lately on streams, I've been sort of playing the hell out of Assassin's Creed games, just because they're good games, alright? Especially number 2, especially Brotherhood, and especially anything around that era of Assassin's Creed. Now, I'm really hyped for Origins, alright? Same day I'm getting Mario Odyssey, I'm probably going to play the hell out of Origins midnight launch, stream the hell out of it. But before I do that, I figured I might as well get you all into some of this Assassin's Creed-like hype with me as well. You know, I want to make a video similar to the Metal Gear one that I made a long time ago with the storyline and everything, but when I made that video, I honestly look back at it and feel like I was literally a Wikipedia page read out in a very boring, monotone way. I like what I did with that video, but I wanted to do a similar video over here, except I don't want to just focus on the story, I want to focus on the gameplay, I want to make sort of a retrospective type deal. Really, I'm just hyped, and this kind of video helps console me. Alright, the game is coming out in about 10-ish days, and frankly, I don't want to even look at any footage related to it, I don't want to bother with it. I want to talk about it and get my whole feelings out of this franchise out there, now that it's all built up inside me. So the first game we're looking at is obviously the first one, Assassin's Creed 1, and a fair warning here, I'm not going to be looking at any DLCs, I'm not going to look at any books, I'm not going to look at any comic books, I'm not going to look at anything that is outside the core games, alright? There's a lot of DLC, there's a lot of portable games like Assassin's Creed 2 Discovery on the DS, God bless Ubisoft for that one. There is Assassin's Creed Identity on the Apple devices. I'm not going to bother for it. The smartphone's Apple Android. That's not happening. If I was going to do that, we'd be here all goddamn week, and frankly, we are not prepared for that. What I'm looking at is the core games, and that's it. I would look at the DLC, but because it's not part of the main game, or at least it wasn't bundled with the actual shipped copies of the game, I'm not going to look at it. That being said, let's get into Assassin's Creed 1. Now, AC1, as far as storyline is considered, is a sci-fi game. Alright, yes, this game, the series is all sci-fi. It's all about a war between the Assassins and the Templars, the Illuminati, so to believe. Alright, that's what it is. If you thought it was all historically set in the past, you'd be wrong. The modern-day Illuminati world that the game is set inside basically is like the umbrella storyline to the game. It connects every bit of these historical pieces together. Otherwise, without that, it would just be a set of periods randomly chosen with Assassin-Templar conflict. Remember that as we go in. This is a sci-fi game. So for this first video, we're going to basically tie it out with a umbrella main character. The main character for this first half of the franchise, it's Desmond Miles, alright? Desmond Miles is the main character, and I love him or hate him. A lot of people in the franchise either like the guy or they hate the guy. Me, I actually really like the character. And as we go through this video later on, you're going to see that slowly change. You're going to feel my emotions come out per game as it progresses. But I like the character. Now, as far as a little bit of context goes, he used to be an assassin, I guess you could say technically, but ran away and started his own life, wanted to live on his own terms. Congratulations, God bless him for that. Up until the Templars actually capture him under the guise of Abstergo Corporation. This is the massive conglomerate that uses a lot, that basically is the giant big company that's multinational. They're the Templar front, so to speak. Now, the game loads into this simulation that's powered by this thing called the Animus, and it's a tool the Templars use to read genetic information from our DNA to look at what our ancestors were like back in the day. Look at the historical memories of our ancestors. Again, if that confused you, don't worry. It confuses me too. I don't understand how it works. I don't get how they pull that off. I'm not a geneticist, but even I can tell you that is a load of bullshit. But we're going to let Ubisoft get away with it, because that's the start of the series, and hey, it's a fictional piece of media, we're going to give them some semblance of credit. But I don't think this is even possible in any way, shape, or form. The game tries to make some crude explanation into how it's possible. I don't buy it for a second, but let's get on with it. Now, the leader of this entire research project, Warren Vidic, is like really, he has this hard-on about you going into the Animus, you discovering your history, you finding out what they want, all right, what they want to look for. So basically what happens is he forces you into this memory of your ancestor, Altair ibn Lahad. Altair is a master assassin for the Assassin's Order in the Crusade era. He works as a master assassin. This is the only life he's known. Basically, what happens is Warren is forcing you into his memories, though it doesn't work too well. All right, because apparently, in order to get to that memory, you need to go to a stable memory and work your way through it. This is just a bullshit excuse for you to actually have a game. All right. Other than that, I've never seen this kind of an issue take place in the later series of the games. You just need to go to an earlier memory and work your way through it. Okay. In this case, they're lucky because they only have like 7 or 8 memory blocks to deal with it, which is very freaking short. I'm sure you can finish this game in like 5 hours or so. But regardless, they put you a little bit beforehand and you go from there. So basically, they put you into a point where you're investigating, you're trying to retrieve this artifact for your leader, Omwalam, your boss. However, Altair has an ego, he fucks it up, and frankly ends up going back to Masyaf, the assassin's stronghold. And over here, they're actually assaulted by the Templars as well, right after this whole butchering of their job that they were on beforehand. Altair saves the day. He stops a Templar invasion, though, because he actually broke the rules of the Assassin Brotherhood, they go off on him. They axe him. They demote him to the point. Omwalam demotes him to nothing more than a novice. Now, this is basically a Samus Aran, I like to call it, where they give you all the good shit towards the beginning, and they take it away within a second. Alright, so you have no abilities, no nothing. You start off from absolutely crap. But you're given the option to save yourself. Either you kill like 9 people, you save your own life, and you earn your title back, or you just get wasted. Now, obviously, given that question, I think anybody would go out of their way to fight, and that's where the whole cusp of the story begins through. Now, as you kill through these people, it's not really that exciting. The story at this point dies down. All right. And this is where I want to talk about the gameplay of the original Assassin's Creed. Now, the gameplay is about the most boring I've ever encountered in Assassin's Creed series. In fact, it's one of the most boring games in general. I always tell people, play the second game, alright? Read a synopsis of the first one, watch some Let's Play, watch like an Assassin's Creed cutscene compilation. Just don't waste your time playing this game. Why? Because Assassin's Creed is the most boring game. This is before the era of Ubisoft open world-itis, where you essentially had a checklist to follow. At least you had content, right? You had a whole ton of things to do in the open world game. How do you do assassinations in Assassin's Creed? Let me ask you. Well, for one, it's very open-ended. It's like playing a simplistic Hitman game where you're given a target, you're given your location, and however you proceed to do it is up to your discretion. Do you want to do it silently, or do you want to rush in with your sword and screw everything up, or go in and send a message? You can. All right, that's what you do. You kill your target, you escape and lay low, and then that's about every assassination the game has to offer. Now, in order to get to the assassination phase, you have to do these investigations. And this is where the real repetitiveness shines. So let's assume you're on the Xbox or the PlayStation version of the game. Well, you're going to have a really boring time, because there's only 3 different types of missions in this game, in this game's investigation phase. There's either you sit on a bench, and you press the Y button or the triangle button, and you listen into people talking. That's literally a gameplay element. 1 is pickpocketing, where you go behind, you sort of stretch your hand out awkwardly and grab something out of their pocket without getting caught. Or, here's the other exciting one, you interrogate somebody. And this is really easy. All you have to do is listen to them give a speech, literally switch to your fists, and as soon as they're about to walk off, beat the crap out of them. You're allowed to do that. The guards don't care. They don't give a shit. And that's about it. That's the 3 mission types. Now, there could be like 5 or 6 different investigations to do, but you're only really required to do like 2 of them, and then you get access to the assassination memory. And I would recommend you do that, unless you really care about increasing your sync bar health level, whatever you want to call it, or you really care about completion, or you really have a completionist boner, go for it. If you just want to play through the story, literally do 2, follow the actual assassination, because while it does give you intelligence to solve out on how to do certain assassinations ideally, it really doesn't matter. The game basically spells out, as soon as you get to that position, how to handle things. It's very linear, but not linear in that way. So that's about the gameplay element entirely. Now, aside from assassinations, you might ask, what is so exciting to do in these 3 beautifully, recreated cities? Well, you can go hunt for flags. That's one thing. What do you get out of the flags? I don't know. I've never bothered to look for it. It's like the GTA 4 pigeons. All right, I just couldn't be fucked to deal with that level of gameplay. All right, you really want me to hunt down for 100 things, 200 things? Not really happening. Aside from that, you can hunt down Templars, these strong characters just stationed out throughout the map, and you can fight them. They're pretty tough. All right, so make sure you go into them at least like halfway into the game when you have like all your items and shit, because these guys don't fuck around. They will fuck your shit up. All right, they have been programmed with absolute ruthlessness. Don't walk into it, first, second chapter, because you are ill-equipped to fight on these bastards. Regardless out of that, once you progress through the story enough, and towards the end is where it really just picks up again, where it's actually worth focusing in on. Towards the middle of it, I just couldn't really care about the story. It was just assassination, assassination, assassination. But towards the end, you figure out that there's this conspiracy, right? You're killing people on both sides. And it turns out your boss, Omwalem, was really a Templar all along. I know, it's a big shock. And the item you were retrieving is called an Apple of Eden. Now, after a boss fight in the end, which is really easy, because the combat in the game is actually really easy too. See, a lot of people like to tell you Assassin's Creed combat was this deep, engaging system in the early games, and it became easy towards the end. Let me detail you the actual combat guide to Assassin's Creed. Let's assume this is the controller you're using, right? You're going to use the left trigger to get into defensive phase, and you're going to be great friends, all right? This is going to be your best friend for the whole game. This is called the counter button. As soon as anybody's about to attack, or you have a little inkling that they're going to attack, or somebody, they'll telegraph very good. You press the X button, all right? And you're going to do that over and over and over and over and fucking over and over until you win every fight. I shit you not, that is about as easy as the game gets. I'm not joking. And people like to tell you it's complicated. It's not. I've literally described to you the easy instant win button of Assassin's Creed. Sometimes you might have to switch to throwing knives and throw them across the map to get an archer. But for the most times, the game doesn't get more enticing than left trigger and X and X and X and X and X. Anyways, back to the game. So once you figure out this conspiracy, you beat the boss battle, you find out that the Apple of Eden projects a vision of the world with like points on it that actually detail you other apples of Eden hidden throughout the map. And alongside this, you find out that Omwalem was actually just using you to kill off his Templar buddies and a couple of assassins as well too, just so that he could have the apple all to himself. All this power, all this lust for it, whatnot. The story ends around there. You wake up back in the modern day, and Desmond finds out that Abstergo is, wow, a Templar front. There were assassins supposed to save you, but they failed, and you kind of find out that the assassins aren't really doing too well. The world is really against them, and against them wholeheartedly, and at this point, the Templars are winning the fight entirely. And while you would die towards the end, Lucy kind of saves you. She keeps you alive for a while, and at this point you realize towards the end of the game, when you're finally all said and done, that you have developed something called the bleeding effect. See, basically, extending yourself into the animus long enough will cause you to develop its symptoms outside. Basically, you'll start to see the past and whatnot. Your mind will cave in. This plays a greater effect later on in the game, like later on in the series entirely, but for now, he's developed the bleeding effect. And so you can actually use the eagle vision, the senses of Altair out in the real world at this point. That's about where the game ends. You sort of see projections on the wall. You see messages written in blood, from the previous subject left behind, who will also be important, and that's the end of Assassin's Creed. It's sort of a primer. And I know I kind of shit-talk the gameplay, but again, please skip it, but realize that Assassin's Creed came out a long time ago. I sort of put it like Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs was a good game, but Watch Dogs 2 completely shat on it across the board. It iterated on it, it extended it like crazy, and Watch Dogs 1, while it was decent, was the start of a new franchise, and this is what Assassin's Creed was as well. It's up until the second game where it truly starts to shine. Whoa, would you look at that? It's nighttime all of a sudden. I got a little shave going on. As you can see, things have just turned upside down since we've finished talking about Assassin's Creed 1. Now, I might be wondering, oh, Mudahar, why would you do that? Why would you turn everything upside down? No, it's not just a silly excuse for me filming out of order or anything, or me losing a bet to my friend. No. This is all actually part of the script, to be honest. As you can see, Assassin's Creed 2, the game that we're looking at, in fact, from now on and so forth, Assassin's Creed has sort of turned upside down, ladies and gentlemen. It's a night and day difference. See? It was day, night and day difference. Night and day difference. Don't look homeless anymore. At least I slightly do, I would like to think. Assassin's Creed 2 was a time when story was really introduced into the game, or rather the dial got turned up all the way to 25. The game does the job of explaining what the fuck we saw last game. It starts off almost literally just after the first game. You know, to be honest, Lucy shows up covered in this blood. She unlocks you out herself, puts you back into the Animus, downloads memories, and with that makes you the witness of the birth of a new assassin main character, Ezio Auditore da Firenze. Now, get used to him. He's going to be around for a bit. In fact, he's going to be around for the next 2 games, including this one. Well, 3 games, really. And he's actually a really great character. In fact, out of all the assassins shown up so far, he's probably the best. So once you download the bit of data, you get to escape from Abstergo, which I gotta admit is a pretty cool part of the game. You get to see the guts of the company, you get to see just a bunch of animuses and everything, and a metric fuck ton of everything during your escape. Once you get out, you go to an assassin's safe house, and you meet 2 new characters, Sean Hastings and Rebecca Crane. And once you get used to them, Rebecca is your tech operator, and Sean is the British dude that just likes to do all the logistical work of the assassins and everything. Anyways, after all those introductions kick off, you get into the Animus 2.0. You know, gotta advance, right? You know, gotta get further ahead in life. So anyways, you load into Ezio's memories, and you start off at the age of like 17, and you just fuck around the whole time. You're a rich kid, you're a rich brat, you do whatever you want. You get into fights, you live this interesting life in Italy, and it actually starts off really strong. You know, it has probably one of the strongest, most like tear-jerking openings out of everything. It's got one of those feelsy openings to it. In fact, all this game is really feelsy. It's a good Assassin's Creed title. Regardless, so you start off the game, and out of the whole series, I gotta say, you might hate him in the beginning because he's pretty pretentious sounding and everything like that, but that's sort of the thing. Assassin's Creed 2 starts off with you kind of hating the main character and then really liking him by the end. By the time you get to AC Revelations, he is this mentor god that you fall in love with. But the game starts off with this tutorial hell, which I swear to God, it lasts till like half the game. In fact, the tutorial is like one of the biggest problems of Assassin's Creed. Every time a game comes out, I understand that people jump in ship as every game ships out, but my God, Ubisoft, we gotta chill out on the tutorials. If half your game is a tutorial mission for everything else, it's time to stop. It's time to reassess just where the fuck we are in designing games, okay? I think people can work past the idea of using the left analog stick to move, alright? Anyways. So you start off the game getting into just doing basic shit work, and then you do this shady line of work that your dad is involved in. In a matter of literal minutes, the game goes from 0 to 11. As your family gets apprehended, you're hiding from you're hiding from the city, and just when you think you can save your family that gets apprehended, they get fucking killed in front of you, okay? Then it becomes the revenge tale of every single revenge tale imaginable. You escape the city of Florence, and you end up retreating to your Uncle Mario's villa in the region of Monteriggioni, which you'll see in this game and the next game afterwards. From here, you receive assassins training, you learn about the assassins, and you begin to avenge your family by hunting down the Templars behind this intense conspiracy. From here, the story takes you all the way from Florence to the city of Venice even. You do political coups, you learn about, conspirators, you hunt down the Templars, you basically grow together, and you learn more and more about this conspiracy as time goes on. And you find that at the end, that the main central conspirator is Rodrigo Borgia. And with this new information, Ezio works his way again through Venice and every other city that's in this game, every other region, Forli, and you make new friends, and you do little things here and there. Every sequence has its own little bit of sub-story to go along with. At one point, really, Ezio fights Rodrigo only to be ambushed. And during this, he receives help from all the friends he's made, and it's revealed that all of the people that he's made friends with up in this game are actually assassins, and that they've been guiding Ezio. And Ezio's actually proven himself to be in the guild himself. Now, it's around this time Desmond wakes from the Animus, and you get tested. You get sort of tested around with how much you've learned, for Ezio rather, because the whole story really revolves around Desmond being put into the Animus so he can quickly learn the assassin abilities and then use that in the real world, because it's all about prepping Desmond, right? Desmond gets tested, he works, and it works because it uses the bleeding effect. The effect where he gets to see the blood scrawlings in the first game, all that basically is that he adapts really quickly. But the side effect of the bleeding effect is that the bleeding effect will work against you. It'll basically destroy your mind if you stay around in the Animus for too long. But it's a risk worth taking because, again, you have to fight the Templars, right? So get fucking used to it. Bleeding effect gets so bad that he starts to see, like, Altair's memories, even without getting into the Animus, which, again, is pretty bad. So you go back into the Animus, you realize that there's a few corrupted sequences, which are actually DLC sequences You know, you gotta love it when they try to like monetize parts of the game by like hiding the fact that it's DLC. Okay, it's if you have the Game of the Year edition or I think the PS3 edition comes with all of it, then you don't have to worry. It's all available, but it's really DLC segments, and we're not going to talk about that because if I talked about DLC, we'd be here till the next Assassin's Creed game after Origins. Now, you continue the story of Ezio like years down the line. He gets older, and he finds out that Rodrigo has ascended to like this Pope status god level. So Ezio then has to collect all these codex pages. He has to understand the location of the vault. And they find out that the vault is really in the Vatican. They have to go to the Vatican. Ezio heads there. He fights Rodrigo, eventually overtaking him and opening this vault in the Vatican, using the papal staff, which is another piece of Eden, like the apple that they had to find. And this is where the game gets to this mindfuck level. So far, I've been paraphrasing this game, and I've been wanting to get to this part. Apparently, within the vault, what you have to know, there's a hologram created by an older apex civilization of Earth. Okay, I want you stop. I know it's weird. Okay, I know I've been skipping through a lot. I know I've been paraphrasing a lot, and what I just said might fuck with minds. But apparently, Ezio uncovers a civilization that was wiped out by a great calamity. This civilization uses a hologram to communicate with Ezio to talk directly to Desmond. Ezio's a prophet. I know, don't stop, alright? It gets even better. She tells us how the humans were engineered to serve them. We rebelled and won, but still, because of the catastrophe, we almost all died out. So you wake up to a modern day, you find out the Templars have discovered where you're at. Lucy gives you a hidden blade. You say, well, fuck it, I'm gonna put down some Abstergo agents. And you do. And you escape with your team in a hurry, and the credits arrive, and that's where Assassin's Creed 2 ends. All you have to know is at the end, you find out there's a magic civilization out in the world, an apex civilization that apparently engineered human beings. You thought the first game was weird? Well, the second game, it's even fucking weirder. Now, there's a perfect combination of how having a historical storyline works well with this modern-day storyline. I love the modern-day Assassin's Creed storyline. As far as the game is considered with 2, I love Assassin's Creed 2. I think it's one of the finest games out on the market. It's probably one of the best games of last generation. It's got, compared to the first game, a whole economy to deal with. It's got a ton of collectibles. It's probably the start of the Ubisoft open world itis, I would like to call it, where they have a bunch of stuff. But except in Assassin's Creed 2 and up until Revelations, all of the stuff really matters. All of it has cutscenes, all of the story missions have some meaningful rewards or meaningful story to offer to it. It's definitely one of those cases where you definitely, if you have the time, try to get 100% synchronization, because it really does matter. The game offers not just an economy, a whole city for you to build up, a whole bunch of pages for you to find, a whole bunch of side missions, platforming side missions for you to commit, and a greater variety in mission structure. Compared to the first game where I shit-talked a lot of the mission styles as repetitive, Assassin's Creed 2 actually fixes a lot of that. Sure, while missions might be repetitive, they actually had this sort of a storyline, or at least a cohesiveness to follow. The assassinations, they're interesting to go through. They might be a little more linear, but the way that they're structured certainly offers more than just Assassin's Creed 1. The combat's a little overworked. It has a wanted level system. In fact, a lot of this game actually just works. Money's introduced, you have things to do with money. Again, going back to economy, it's a game that is a grand successor to Assassin's Creed 1. Whereas AC1 was a nice proof of concept, Assassin's Creed 2 is like the Watch Dogs 2, where once you realize what they're trying to be, they then crank out as much features as they can and offer a cohesive game entirely. There's a reason why Assassin's Creed is a big franchise, because at one point it was an amazing franchise, and I still argue to this day that it still sort of is. But Assassin's Creed 2 is a game that a lot of people picked up and they fell in love with the series, me included. I love Assassin's Creed 2, and to this day it holds the biggest space in my heart. It's probably one of the finest games, and it always will be. So big shout out to Assassin's Creed 2, but that's not where this whole video ends. In fact, because of the nature of direct continuation after every single game, we now have to look at Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, the sequel to 2, and arguably the point where people consider this to be the peak of the Assassin's Creed series. Now, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is a little shorter than 2 when it comes to storyline. In fact, if you really wanted to do this, you could beat it within a day if you really wanted to. In fact, you kind of do that with every single Assassin's Creed game. Not really 2, because 2 is very long if you add all the DLC missions as well, but Brotherhood is kind of short. But that doesn't make it a bad Assassin's Creed game. Let's go into the story first of all, okay? So basically it starts off with Desmond being tossed back into the Animus, and reliving an unstable sequence of him in the middle of a battle. But again, you realize the Animus, where if you go into an unstable memory, you have to work all your way from a stable memory all the way to the memory you want. So again, it's just to pad out game length, let's be serious here. So you go back into just after Assassin's Creed 2, where Ezio is escaping from the Vatican that he had just broken into. At this point, Ezio has the apple, he leaves the vault from Assassin's Creed 2. Ezio and Mario escape Rome with the apple all the way back to Monteriggioni, and here is where the relaxation begins. Obviously, they had a big assignment, so it's time to grab a couple beers, chill back, relax, and drink yourself away to some good old relaxation Assassin's Creed style. But remember, we're playing a game, so we have some tutorials to deal with again, because Ubisoft doesn't believe that we can move around and do basic shit without telling us over and over again. Here you realize that again, shit goes all the way from 0 to 3,000 because Monteriggioni gets fucking sieged. All because Ezio actually left Rodrigo Borgia alive just fine. I don't know why, because you definitely like to kill a lot of people earlier on. Why the fuck didn't you just complete the mission ahead of time? I don't know. I don't claim to know. I'm not Ezio, so we're going to leave it at that. You go through the same tutorial nonsense again, of course. But Mario actually gets killed during the siege, people have to evacuate, shit gets messed up. Then you cut to modern day and realize that Desmond and team are actually at current day Monteriggioni, which is pretty sweet by the way. It's nice to see the world of Assassin's Creed in both different timelines. At this point, you can also just leave the Animus and roam around Monteriggioni if you ever felt like it, but there isn't really much besides a few odd collectibles here and there. Now, this is actually the last safe house they actually have. Besides Monteriggioni, they're screwed. They quickly set up shop and they enter the Animus. Though it is to note that the bleeding effect is getting pretty worse at this point. Desmond is seeing Ezio outside of the Animus, and people are getting worried on the team. Ezio wakes up a bit later once Desmond gets put back into the Animus in Rome, and quickly meets up with Machiavelli and learns that the Borgia have sunk their teeth right into the city, like they own this city. So you realize that Cesare Borgia, which is Rodrigo's son, is in command of the military in Rome, and they control all the happenings in the city. So throughout the course of the game, Ezio is building up the Assassin's Brotherhood, which is a big deal. This is where the big gameplay edition of this game comes in. You get to recruit your own assassins, you get to lead them, sending them out on missions, right? And you get to call upon them in battle. Like, in the middle of the game, you can press the LB button, or the left bumper, whatever you want to call it, L1, and they will jump out of nowhere and, like, assassinate a motherfucker if they have to. It actually gets pretty damn sweet with how Assassin's Creed Brotherhood handles them. You get to not only recruit assassins, you get to send them out on missions, level them up, raise their progress, unlock special abilities, and then do missions for them to raise them even further beyond what their level is. So it gets pretty intense. It's actually a really interesting feature. So if you ever get swamped by anybody, you could call up a whole row of assassins. You could even get a bunch of assassins to fire darts everywhere and kill everyone at the same time. It's actually pretty damn sweet, and in some cases kind of overpowered. But that's kind of the feeling you should get from this game. You're leading a brotherhood of assassins after all. So regardless, after that, you realize that as you rebuild a brotherhood and you take over a significant part of Rome, i.e. unlock, take over certain towers and then buy areas of the map, which is a big deal. You have to rebuild Rome as you go on through and through. And here you renovate shops and landmarks, and then you increase revenue. You get access to it. You basically rebuild this entire city and brotherhood. And realizing that as you do it, Cesare Borgia kills his own dad, and he proceeds to chase after the Apple of Eden himself. Shit gets serious, right? And you have to understand, as you play Assassin's Creed, the story goes from over and over. Like, it just jumps from point to point. Like, you probably won't notice it as you play, but as you go through the game, you'll realize that as you're doing all the side content, the story, if you just do it through and through, changes dramatically, like sequence to sequence. But anyways, at this point you realize Cesare Borgia runs away with the Apple of Eden. He kills his dad. That's when you race against time and capture it yourself. At this point, you go towards this crisis in Rome. Cesare gets arrested. Now, how long does that last? Not really long. Because then you head to Vienna and you hunt him down. The same sequence you started loading up in the beginning of the game. You finally hunt the bastard down, you kill him. And the final event happens is when Ezio uses his Apple of Eden, locks it in a precursor vault, this old civilization vault, underneath the Santa Maria chapel. Now at this point you set out in the modern day to find this apple in this church that Ezio put itself into, and this is what you're trying to get to through the first game. The first game, the whole point is to find out the Apple of Eden. The second game is to find out the Apple of Eden. The third game you finally get the chance to. So again, you cut to the modern day towards the ending. You run through, you stretch your legs as Desmond, and you finally find this inside a precursor vault, which by the way is pretty cool because you get to see this old civilization futuristic world, which is pretty interesting. You only get to see it rarely, bits and pieces, but whenever I do get to see it, I personally get excited. So as you get your hands on the apple, you realize that as soon as you touch into it, this apparition Juno, from the ones that came before him, gets control of Desmond and stabs Lucy, and that's where the game ends. Dinero. Done. Simple as that. The game ends on the biggest cliffhanger ever. And how long did we wait to get another game? I think about a year after. It was a long time, but it was coming. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, as far as it goes, it's about the same thing as Assassin's Creed 2. It has these glyphs and rifts, which I forgot to mention in the second game, but the glyphs and rifts were the biggest part. These are basically segments where the game cuts to an Illuminati segment where you get to uncover these future world sort of connections of Abstergo, the Templars versus the Assassins, which is a big deal. But you only get to see it in this game and Assassin's Creed 2. Aside from that, it never really shows up in the games later on. If you ever play Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, definitely hunt these glyphs. It unlocks a whole video, and even in Brotherhood, a whole gameplay segment detailing the world that came before human beings. It's actually pretty damn interesting, and at some points it actually gets kind of scary. But that being said, because of how Brotherhood ended, we're going to go to Revelations. Also, let me remind you, it has a multiplayer segment too. A multiplayer segment that lasts till Assassin's Creed 4. What it is it's just cat and mouse dog hunting kind of stuff. If you want to look at it, just look at some gameplay of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. That's what Google is for. That being said, let's go to let's leave Brotherhood and go to Revelations. So Assassin's Creed Revelations is a bit longer. Alright, this game, like the one before, literally kicks off right before the last game sets off, and that's a theme for the rest of the franchise. They literally kick off as soon as... Actually, you know what, that's sort of a lie. After 3, it starts to divulge a little bit, but that's when we'll look at the games from a different perspective. Up till Assassin's Creed 3, every game literally stops, and then it starts literally a minute after the other game ends. So it's actually pretty cohesive that way. In this game, Desmond, due to the last event, due to the events of the last game, is actually in a coma. Apparently, he's been in the Animus so much that his mind is now fucked. All right, so basically, they put him back into the Animus. They put a safe mode state in an attempt to fix himself, or at least keep him stable enough that he doesn't end up, becoming worm food, literally, by the end of the game. It's here that Desmond. Actually, fuck it. Look at him right now. Why the fuck does his face change that much? He literally looks like Adam Sandler in this game. Anyways, he wakes up in the safe mode of the Animus and meets Subject 16, who we've seen mentioned in the last 3 games, though never seen. Play is a big deal. He's the one that was like the original whistleblower, the one that was making the glyphs and rifts from Brotherhood and 2. Now we actually get to see him in the game. At this point, he's like an AI that has created himself into the game. Clay Kazmarek, who's put himself, again, as a personality just for you to talk to in the Animus. And he actually guides Desmond to regain his consciousness from this comatose state that he's actually in. Now again, to survive and basically win this game, Desmond has to reach something called a Sink Nexus. What's a Sink Nexus? Well, it's a bullshit excuse for you to relive all the last remaining droplets of memories that your ancestors have, so that you can defragment your mind, because right now Desmond's mind is really fucking fragmented. So he's got to defrag himself before he wakes up out of this coma. Now, this game basically starts off as Ezio much later on in his life, senior citizen Ezio, the time where he's the Grand Master of the Assassins. And here he has to look for a secret library of Altair in Masyaf Castle, the original location of the first game. At this point, it's overrun by Templars. You discover the entrance to the library, but in order to get into it, you need these special keys. It was never going to be easy, okay? Let's be serious. They have a whole game to make. It's all good. Ezio chases the Templar captains through these nearby villages and finds out that all the locations are mentioned, and they're hidden inside the city of Constantinople. Over here you meet Yusuf Tazim and rebuild the Assassin Brotherhood here. Literally, it's just an evolved version of the Brotherhood version of building your assassins. It's got some refinements to it. Other than that, it's not too different entirely. It's got a den defense type minigame where a lot of people hated it. I didn't mind it too much. Honestly, I like the way the assassins are handled in this game. It's a little more intense, but it's not too different than Brotherhood, so there's no reason to talk about it more so than ever. Ezio finds the first key in this hidden entrance inside a bookstore run by this fellow Italian chick called Sofia Sartor, and it's revealed that these keys are actually like mini animuses, in that they record memories from Altair, and you can actually like look into these memories and see snippets or, dare I say, revelations of Altair's life. As the game progresses, you end up going all the way to save this Ottoman prince named Suleiman from an assassination spearheaded by the Templars. Ezio then tries to uncover this whole conspiracy, and remember, conspiracy is a massive word in the Assassin's Creed world, run by this Janissary captain named Tariq Barletti. And with that information, you end up heading out to Cappadocia. It's over here Ezio causes some good old-fashioned terrorism, because that's literally what it is. He's a fucking terrorist in this day and age, and draws out Manuel and kills him just before he can escape, and in doing so, he gets the last key for the temple. With this, he manages to live out the last memories of Altair, and again with that, you return back to Constantinople. You find out that Yusuf and the Brotherhood were attacked, and, you know, Yusuf's gone. It's actually pretty sad if you spend a lot of time building the Brotherhood to know that they all get kind of fucked in the end. Sophia's life's put into danger, and Ezio has a daring rescue to make. Ezio decides to actually give up the keys that he even searched for, spends so much of his life for, to save Sophia's life. It's a noble cause, but really doesn't have an effect. She would have died anyways. Ezio saves her. He does what he does best. He chases after all the remaining enemies of the game, and it's during this they get into an accident, and one thing after another. It's safe to say that at the end of the day, Ezio actually gets exiled from the city. Nobody wants him there anymore after all the problems that he causes. And Ezio doesn't care. Him and Sofia leave to Masyaf for the last time ever. And over here, Ezio finally gets into the library that he's so intended to get into. And here is where the big revelation appears. See, Desmond then wakes up on Animus Island, the safe mode of the Animus, one more time. And here he almost gets deleted by this failsafe routine. But then it's saved by this. Then he's saved by He's saved by Clay again, who sacrifices himself in this AI form to keep Desmond alive. Desmond, one last time, is pushed back into the Sink portal, and here he relives the final memory of Ezio. And here, Ezio opens a door. He goes into the library, and he sees the final memory of Altair, who at the end of the life emptied the fortress of Masyaf, locked himself in the library, encoded his final memory, and then passed away at the age of 90-ish. Once seeing the last memories of Altair, Ezio sees the Apple of Eden he hunted down, but instead of taking it, he actually calls Desmond by name and says that he's glad to be a messenger for him the whole time. And he would make the request that Desmond actually do something and make his life worthwhile in all of his efforts. All the things that Ezio went out to do was really just to pass on to Desmond, and Ezio just wants his legacy to make sense. And it's here that Desmond witnesses what really happened to the first civilization, the Great First Destruction, an event known as the Great Calamity. And everyone of that era tried to stop it, but they all died. They failed. They couldn't do it. Complete extinction was almost reached. Though in this revelation, they would find a way to stop it. And that's by going to one of the grand laboratories, the Grand Templars, really, located in upstate New York, one of them at least. Desmond wakes from his coma he's in and witnesses Rebecca and Sean alongside his dad, William Miles. And they show up to the entrance of the Grand Temple, and guess what? The game ends! You gotta wait till Assassin's Creed 3 for the story to continue, let me tell you that much. Alright, so I know I kind of skipped over Assassin's Creed Revelations a little bit. I gave it a little bit lesser of attention than I gave 2 in Brotherhood, and that's because after Brotherhood is definitely the point of Assassin's Creed, where it starts to sort of dip, after Brotherhood. There's no way I could ever say that Revelations was a better game than Brotherhood. It was essentially the game where you got to see a lot of repetition kick off as time went on. Now, the next game in this franchise, Assassin's Creed 3, is where the real shit is at, ladies and gentlemen. This This is a game, though, that divided a lot of people in the community, okay? After this game, I personally stopped playing the Assassin's Creed series for a little bit of time. Some people, they really liked it, some people felt split about it, and this was kind of the same year that Mass Effect 3 came out, and it was all relatively about the ending of the game in particular. For me personally, I liked Assassin's Creed 3, the gameplay in of itself. I liked the game, it was a fun title. Let's get into the story of the game. So here, you go far off, later off in time, and essentially you wake up from Revelations, you get through your Sink Nexus coma issue or whatever, and you wake up as Desmond or Mel Gibson or fucking Nicolas Cage. I don't... the character faces change again. I don't know who it is at Ubisoft that does this shit, but it always triggered me entirely. I remember getting really triggered when I put Revelations in for the first time, and the first time I loaded up Assassin's Creed 3 on my PlayStation 3, and I saw fucking Mel Gibson or Nicolas Cage, or that's not Desmond. Alright, I was really fucking tilted, okay? That's what kicked off, alright? That drives me insane. I don't know why they did it, but whatever, triggers aside, let's go into this. You wake up, you're in upstate New York, you get to the entrance of the Grand Temple, this grand laboratory. You get inside, and you realize that it's a huge underground development area for figuring out how to deal with the Great Cataclysm. Now, towards the end of this giant cavernous area is this pedestal you need to reach. But before you do that, you have to get a key. Why? Because of the video game. You have like 15 hours ahead of you before you actually get to the end. So regardless, you have to find the key. Desmond gets into this state where he needs to be, where he's trying to remember the ancestor of his past, another assassin ancestor. I mean, this guy's hit the fucking jackpot. He's the assassin god. He's got like 3 massive ancestors right under his belt that he can tap into at any moment in time. So regardless, he starts loading up the history of Haytham Kenway, one of the biggest assassins of that era. And as he loads up the memory, they put him into the Animus, and Desmond loads into London at the time. Basically, what Haytham is doing is he's investigating around. He essentially goes to this opera, this theater. He finds this person, assassinates them, and grabs an artifact off him, a piece of Eden artifact, a item from the ones who came before us, the precursor people, you know, the Elamaus of this universe. He finds out it's a key, and the whole faction basically tells him, you know what, Haytham? You should go all the way to the colonies, the British-American colonies of the time. And Haytham then goes to Boston. He basically sets up foothold for his faction in of itself. You know, he sets up, he meets the locals, he gets things going, he performs a couple assassinations, pulls some smooth moves. And actually, he's probably one of my favorite characters in the whole franchise anyways. He's just a smooth, loving guy. But he's not the main character, and we all know it, alright? We've all seen the trailers for 3. We know that he ain't the main character. Why? Because by the end of, like, sequence 2 and 3, or whatever it is, he actually turns out to be a Templar, ladies and gentlemen. I know, what a shock, right? Somebody at Ubisoft was, like, jerking themselves off when they came out with that revelation, I swear to God. We all knew what was happening. We all knew that this was some Templar conspiracy. So then the game shifts protagonist. Obviously, at this point, Haytham has actually met this lovely Native American woman, and he has a kid with her, all right? He doesn't stick around. You know, he decides to go get cigarettes. She has the kids anyways. And the game shifts. Obviously, how the Animus works is once you've conceived, you go to the memory of the new kid, right? It's something like that. Anyways, that being said, we start looking at, we start looking through the eyes of Connor, you know, a new Native American boy that's just been born into the world, and here is where the tutorialitis kicks in too. You know, you get to learn about the new mechanics, and there's plenty of new mechanics in this game. There's a whole hunting system, there's crafting, and alongside the whole assassin building, which you see later, there's just a general improvement to how the game plays anyways. You know, you get to see the actual graphics improved, because at this point you get to see the new Anvil Next engine, which actually did look really amazing for the time. I remember actually firing this up and being blown away visually. I played it first on the PS3, and then I bought the game later for the PC at the time, and I was like, wow, this game is god-tier amazing. And as you played through later and later and later, you realize that even the free running was better. Here the game is more safe to play, whereas there's less problematic issues of free running taking place. If you ever played 2 Brotherhood Revelations, it was alright, but there was moments where Ezio was just fucking high half the time, and he just didn't want to listen to you. Connor at least plays well. You can run through trees, you can do these cool little jumps between. It actually flows really well. It's a really nice system. And up until Unity, Unity really changed a couple things even better, but this game was a start of a better free run system anyways. So Connor basically grows up, and here's where the detriment comes to. A lot of people don't like Connor over Ezio, and I think the reason for that is you only really have one game with Connor. But you start off the game as a kid, you grow up, you realize that Connor's village actually gets burnt down by the evil menace, the evil people who are taking over his land. And so Connor, he's not exactly the happiest child growing up. I mean, his mother dies. His whole village gets burned down. Well, what are you gonna do if you're his age? What are you gonna do? You're gonna be angry. So he goes through this vision quest and he finds out that in this vision quest, where they basically use a precursor artifact in his tribe, he realizes that he sees the assassin logo in his vision quest. And because of that, he ends up traveling far off and wide to meet a man named Achilles, an old assassin. And here you can see the assassins, at least over here, are in complete shambles. There's almost none of them left. Achilles is just the last of his kind. But Connor comes in, he tries convincing the old man, and eventually he gets right through, and bam! A few months later, he becomes a goddamn assassin. And an assassin indeed. Connor actually becomes master assassin, I believe, of the American faction of the group, which is a pretty big deal. Now, the whole quest of the, ancestor story in this game is essentially Connor finding a key. Connor has to locate a key in this universe, and that's all about it. Connor has to basically hunt down Hatham, he has to hunt down the Templars, and while hunting them down, he has to essentially raise the Brotherhood from absolute nothing to the max to its max potential in this game. And alongside that, he's got to essentially lead key points in the American Revolution from the shadows into succession. So here you get to meet like George Washington, you get to meet Benjamin Franklin, you get to actually meet key members if you learned anything about U.S. history. And it essentially paints Connor as one of the sole reasons of the formation of the United States of America. But again, the ulterior motive is Connor is hunting for this key, this artifact. And as Connor hunts for this artifact, you're also looking through the Animus as Desmond to find out where you put this key so you can access this pedestal in the laboratory and save the Earth from the second calamity, which is happening on December 21st, 2012. You remember when the world is going to end in 2012? Yeah, they had that as a plot point. I'm not even kidding with you. Again, somebody at Ubisoft really fucking jacked themselves off to this goddamn story, and rightfully so. It was alright. But anyways, moving into the story, you find out that as you're looking through the past, sometimes Desmond does wake up and you get to have these little cool missions outside in the real world. So like you get to go to Brazil, you get to go to New York, perform a leap of faith even. You get to even go back to Abstergo at one point, and you get to have these missions outside, which is cool because at this point Desmond's just been dicking around in VR simulations or Monteriggioni whenever he fucking felt like it. But after a while, you actually get to see him go out into the field, and it's impressive. Now, the ending of the game, once everything is all said and done, is where the real division of players essentially happens. See, the ending of Assassin's Creed 3 actually pushed me personally away from the game, like many other people too. What happens in the end is Juno, Minerva, the Elamaus, the ones that came before, essentially come out and give you a choice as Desmond is about to activate this pedestal thing that he has seen in the beginning of the game. The choice that you get in the end comes down to this. Either you side with Minerva, and you don't touch the pedestal, you don't save the world, but the world essentially goes into the cyclical cycle where the whole Assassin's Templar thing happens again. The world gets extinct, humanity comes back again, and the whole conflict starts off over and over again. It's cyclical. But if you side with Juno and save the world, she gets freed, which is bad news because... Not really actually, because later on in the series, not like it does fuck all anyways. Alright, what am I getting up in arms about? Actually, it does nothing. Okay, you want to know what happens at the end of Assassin's Creed 3? Desmond risks his life for fucking nothing. He dies. You know what I mean? They kill him off. They kill off the character that's basically been keeping the series in an umbrella form throughout the whole thing. And that's why I stopped playing Assassin's Creed 3. See, up until now in this video, I've been focusing on the modern day story. I've always said, modern day, modern day, modern day. Because it's the umbrella story. Okay? When you kill the character you've kept with us since fucking, what? Hold on. You make me buy all these games, get me all hyped up in Desmond and shit, and then you just kill him off. Alright? He's the character that they've kept in this entire franchise, and they just iced him off. Now, a lot of people were okay with Desmond dying off, and I at the end of the day, like, it's a split thing, but it's one of those elements where once you killed off the character, it essentially kind of stopped people from really focusing on the story, because after this, the modern day story gets really weird, which we'll be looking at in the video after this. But for now, you have to understand that Desmond got a really crappy choice. It really didn't affect anything in the whole global story overall, and essentially left a sour taste in many people's mouth once they finished Assassin's Creed 3. It was a story that wasn't worth following anymore. You got rid of the hook, the thing that essentially kept it all on a thread. Once you cut that off, what was the point of really following it? There was a symbiotic relationship between the past and the future in this game, and once they killed that, Ubisoft kind of shot themselves in the foot when it came to keeping this franchise going. But we'll look at that in the next video. For now, though, Assassin's Creed 3 is a fun game. Multiplayer was redefined, and it actually had more of that classic Abstergo, revelation, the conspiracy theories, the glyphs continued on in the multiplayer, which we had seen in 2 and Brotherhood. But alongside that, the game had general quality of life improvements. It was a fun game. And at times, even the assassin system was better done too. Instead of just random characters, you actually got real stories behind these characters, real stories, real actual meaningful characters that actually had different things to do in different parts of each city that was in the game, New York, Boston, and so on and so forth. And up until then, I really did enjoy all the systems. It was a fun title. You got to use the assassins you recruited for different things, whether it was for distraction purposes, lures, all that kind of good stuff. It was a fun system. They even had a naval battle segment in this game where you get to drive a ship around and get into actual fights, which was really, really fun. And it actually got so touched up that it was one of the big reasons why people loved the next game in the franchise, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, also known as Pirates of the Caribbean Simulator 20 whatever year it came out, 2015, I believe. But that said, we're going to end the video over here. I've had enough rambling, all right? I'm going to get some beers, get a little drunk before I look at the fucktarded story after this video. And I'll see you all till then. I hope you enjoy it. It's a little different than, just me really summarizing any other game that I'm in love with. I really wanted to just get into ramble Mudahar and talk about this game and really talk about every single thing, get my whole heart out there, and essentially stave off the hype problem that I have for Assassin's Creed Origins. That being said, I'll see you all in the next video. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, I'm out.